So now on to CRF and CVD risk. 1 MAT increment is considered 1 kilometer per an hour higher running or jogging speed, and this is shown to reduce risk about 13% in all-cause and 15% in CVD risk. Low CRF is anything less than 7.9 MAT, moderate is 7.9 to 10.8, and high is anything over 10.9 or higher. Like other studies, the Katamara study showed that the greatest risk reduction, again, is between low physical activity and moderate physical activity. And the statement, mortality may be less for those who are fit, but not for those who are not now fit, but to try to get fit, is controversial. Some studies have shown that obesity and fitness are interrelated, so that you cannot lower your risk without lowering your obesity. However, other studies have shown that just simply becoming more physically fit, not necessarily becoming less obese, can reduce your all-cause and your CVD risk. So again, that statement's controversial, can be both true and false, depending on who you talk to. So how much exercise really is needed? Again, the 2008 guidelines suggest around 20 minutes per day, but recent studies have shown that some even 15 minutes a day can be associated with risk reduction in both all-cause and CVD risk. A study by Lee showed that 5 to 10 minutes a day of running is effective, and Barbara et al. Showed that even 2 minutes of high intensity training is beneficial. So for muscle physiology, I'm going to read the statements and fill in the blanks as I go along. When the nerve impulse action potential reaches the axon terminal, it triggers the influx of calcium ions into the axon. Influx of calcium into the axon causes synaptic vessels to release acetylcholine via exocytosis, which then diffuses across the synaptic junction. When acetylcholine binds to acetylcholine receptors on the sarcolemma, it opens voltage-gated channels which allow in sodium and potassium cations. When sodium rushes across the sarcolemma, the charge along the inner membrane becomes less negative. The depolarization reaches a certain threshold, the action potential propagates along the sarcoma. A muscle unit of contraction is called the sarcomere. In terms of filament thickness, actin is the thin filament and myosin is a thick filament. The first step in sarcomere contraction is when calcium binds to troponin. Activation of the myosin head occurs when ATP is hydrolyzed into ADP and phosphate. The power stroke occurs when ADP releases and the activated myosin head pivots, sliding the thin myofilament towards the center. The binding of ATP to the myosin head causes detachment of the myosin head from actin binding. And to end the contraction, calcium ions return to the sarcoplasmic reticulum. An action potential is conducted into the interior of muscle fibers via an infolding in the sarcoplasm known as the excitation connection coupling. The calcium storing membrane network inside a muscle cell is called the sarcoplasmic reticulum. When activated, voltage-gated proteins connecting the T-tubules and the sarcoplasmic reticulum causes the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and the release of the enzyme acetylcholinesterase in the neuromuscular junction destroys the acetylcholine and stops the generation of the muscle action potential. So how does fitness reduce CVD risk? We'll start with endothelial shear stress, and this is the tangential forces from the blood flowing over the endothelial surface, and this is picked up by a number of detectors on the cell surface to include tyrosine kinase receptor, BEGFR2, potassium ion channels, and PCAM1. An important pathway that is activated by all of this is the ENOS pathway, which is good for you, so ultimately high ESS is associated with good health. So let's go on to eNOS, and what that does, ultimately that induces the production of nitrous oxide, and nitrous oxide causes smooth muscle dilation. It opposes the effects of endothelial-derived vasoconstriction. It inhibits platelet aggregation and adherence. It inhibits leukocyte adherence and infiltration. It inhibits the proliferation of oxidative modification of LDLs. And all of this ultimately causes vasodilation and or reduces the inflammation process, which keeps the blood flowing smoothly and reduces the overall blood pressure of a person. Low ESS can cause sustained endothelial activation of sterile regulatory element binding protein, and this promotes the accumulation of LDL and the permeability of the endothelial cells to LDL. It regulates mitotic and apoptotic activity of endothelial cells, which widens the junction between the endothelial cells, again, further helping the infiltration of LDLs. It also induces IL-8 and inflammation and promotes the production of oxidative species, which leads to oxidation of LDLs.